biggest South Asian media group, Ymedia.
Hello everyone, my name is Yudhir Jaswal. I'm the group editor at Ymedia. And today we have a very special guest here at Channel Y Studios. I'd like to welcome Member of Parliament Brad Redekopp. Brad, a very warm welcome on Ymedia. How are you, sir?
I'm very good, Yudhir. Thanks for having me here today.
You are very welcome. Sir, why don't we start with the main issue that most of the Canadians are facing today, and that's inflation and housing. So if the Conservative Party were to be elected today, what would you do to solve the problems of inflation and housing? Let's talk about that.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. When I talk to people wherever they are, whether they're in Saskatchewan, where I'm from, or here in the GTA or across the country, the cost of living, cost of housing, those are the things that are top of mind to people and making life very difficult for people. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, this country is a very difficult place to live, to pay the bills. Grocery costs have increased significantly, and housing costs have more than doubled. We need to control our spending. This is the first thing. The Liberal government has increased the government spending in a huge amount, by a huge amount over the last years, not even considering the impacts of COVID. And what this has done is put a lot of upward pressure on demand for money. This has caused interest rates to go up, and this has caused inflation. And the Liberals were warned about this, but they chose to ignore that advice, and now here we are. We have high inflation, particularly on food, particularly on housing, and people are struggling because of it. And so the first thing that we can do as a responsible government is to eliminate wasteful spending and get our budget back to balance. And we believe we can get it back to balance just by eliminating things that we shouldn't be spending money on in the first place that will not affect the services that people see in Canada. And that will put downward pressure on inflation, that will put downward pressure on pricing.
Right. And we've seen some recent reports that, yes, we're planning to bring in more immigrants, which is great. We all want immigrants. We're an aging country, and for so many other reasons as well. But now there is also the question that are we able to provide them the services that we need? So how do you balance that? Yeah,
I mean, the Canadian immigration system right now is broken. It's a mess. And these aren't my words. These are the words of Liberal cabinet ministers who have said this. The Liberals, under the watch of Sean Fraser, have made a mess of our immigration system, and now we're seeing the impacts of that. And so, you know, the Liberals have decided to cut back on students, for example. I think it's important that we have a balance between the immigrants that we bring in, because immigrants are critical to the future of Canada. We just don't have enough babies in Canada. And we need more people to fill those jobs to provide the services that we need. But we also have to do it in a managed way to make sure that we have the resources available to the people that are coming to our country. Things like medical care, things like jobs, and things like housing. And if we don't have those in place, then bringing people to the country can get us in the situation we are now, where there are so many people looking for rental housing, for example, that the prices have shot up. So the cost of rent is increasing rapidly. Whereas if you go to the United States, over the last number of months, rent has actually been decreasing in the US, but in Canada it's been going up. And part of that is because of a mismanaged immigration system.
You're talking about infrastructure as well. I haven't seen, I mean, I've been living for a good quarter century now in GTA, which is the third largest city in US and Canada after New York and LA, but nothing new here. No new highways are being built, no massive stadiums or anything, nothing new. And we talk about infrastructure.
Well, just this week, our environment minister said that apparently we're not building any more roads in Canada. I mean, what a ludicrous statement, and totally tone deaf to the needs of a growing country. I mean, we have to have roads. People don't all live in downtowns where there's access. I mean, in my province of Saskatchewan, there's very little transit options. We have to drive, and so first of all, it's a ludicrous statement that he made. Secondly, the government has touted, their funds that they're using to build houses and other things. Well, the reality is they haven't actually built any houses, and so the infrastructure that is so badly needed in our country isn't being built under the current Liberal government. There's lots of photo ops about things that are planned to be built and ideas of future things, but to actually see, shovels in the ground and things happening, it's just not happening from this government.
Yeah, and as you were just mentioning, it was so surprising to see, although he did backpedal on his statement later on, but it was quite surprising to hear that kind of statement, because infrastructure, I think that's what makes us a developed country, a first world country,
Yep.
and here we are talking about infrastructure. So if conservatives come to power, what is your session on infrastructure?
Well, I think we have to make sure that we have the infrastructure that's needed in our country. And we can find the money to do that if we can eliminate things like consultants. We learned this week that there was GC Strategies and the Arrive scam app was paid, that company GC Strategies, which consists of two people in the basement of a residential house doing absolutely no work, were paid $60 million by this government. And so we have all this, these consultants getting money from the government and really money that's flowing, you know, this is yours and mine hard-earned tax money that's going to people like these consultants, liberal friends. That's really corruption in our system. And that is taking budget room from doing good projects like infrastructure, like you're talking about. So you know, we can eliminate the billions of dollars that are spent on consultants, much of it needlessly, and redeploy that money into effective spending like infrastructure.
The last times Conservative won a majority government, it's almost 13 years ago. That was way back in 2011. And one of the reasons, because I did interview the former PM Harper as well, and one of the reasons I would say I saw that they were very active before that period of 2011 in Greater Toronto area. I see that happening again now. You're also here today. And I think your leader, Pierre Poilievre, and the Conservatives have really started shifting back their focus in GTA here. I want you to comment on that, and also Ymedia. We did a recent survey with Main Street, and our headline has been the Liberals MPs and many cabinet ministers stand to lose their seats here in Brampton, Mississauga. What's your take?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I've been on the ground here in the GTA quite a bit and talked to many people. And there's just an overarching sense that everybody's tired of the Liberal government. And even when you look at the government itself, you see a tired government. They don't have a lot of ideas. They're, the ones they do come up with are maybe a little bit weird, like the no more roads idea. And even when they do announcements to spend money, that's all it is. It's a photo op, and it's an opportunity for them to, you know, try to say something good and get a good headline. But the reality is they're not doing anything. They are not meeting the needs of people. They're not listening to people and responding to the actual felt needs that people have. And so because of that, people are tired. People have given up on them. And I honestly, when I look at the government themselves, I think they've given up on themselves.
On foreign policy, I would like to ask you, we are having, you know, challenges with US as well now. US, one of the major trading partners. Russia, we know how our ties are. China, we know how our ties are. Then Iran, then Saudi Arabia. India as well. India, we were about to, you know, move ahead with the free trade agreement. Here we are seeing France, US, England, Australia. Almost 50 countries are trying to do a free trade agreement with India right now as we speak. Many countries in Europe, I'm saying, Switzerland, countries like Norway, they're planning to spend $100 billion in the next 15 years. UAE, they're planning to spend $50 billion. Here we are, and you know, Vic Fedeli, recently we interviewed him as well. I mean, Ontario's minister, they are going to India. But at the federal level, of course, we know there has been an issue, but not the trade and all these things. The discussions are not moving ahead. What do you say on that?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the provinces. I know in my home province of Saskatchewan, our provincial government's doing a great job of interfacing directly with countries like India and Bangladesh, et cetera, to develop those trade deals, because trade is super critical to Canada. You know, agriculture in the West is a huge issue, but all kinds of issues and lots of the prosperity of our country depends on our ability to trade with other countries. And the overarching problem there from a federal perspective is that Justin Trudeau has let Canada's reputation just go into the tank. And so where Canada used to have, under the previous Conservative government, had a very strong standing in the world. In fact, we punched well above our weight. You know, being a middle-level country, we often, our Prime Minister was at the table with the top leaders of the world, and he was able to tell them things, you know, point the finger at them and say, you should do this or you shouldn't do that. And he was respected. And we've lost that. And so Canada is now, we aren't even at the table with the main leaders anymore. And I think our Prime Minister has done a big disservice to the country. And so there are many things that we need to rebuild in terms of our relationships with all of those countries, because as you point out, trade is critical. And we have to get back in there and make sure that our producers, the manufacturers in our country, and the consumers in our country are benefiting from the deals that should be put together.
One of the good things, I must say, as much as when I was in India, I grew up in India, it's a multicultural country, was amazing. Now I come to Canada, again, an amazing country. I don't think so. I could have seen so much of diversity in many other countries. It's amazing. The most beautiful country in the world. But now there's a challenge as well, because we have people from both sides of the fences. How do we make sure we bring them together so that we work for Canada? How can we make this policy shift that, okay, fine, we know there are problems in other parts of the world, but Canada first. Let's focus on this one as well.
Yeah, that's a great question. Canadians need to feel like it means something to be a Canadian. And one of the things that Prime Minister Trudeau said a while back is that we live in a post-national world, which is a very strange statement to me. But what it implies is that it doesn't mean a whole lot to be Canadian, or whatever country you're from is somewhat irrelevant. It's just the place that you live, and we're all residents of the world, kind of a concept. Well, that doesn't make any sense to me, and it doesn't do anything to foster what is a Canadian. And I think back a number of years to when we had the Olympics in Vancouver, and everything was all about Canada. There were flags everywhere, and there was so much national pride because of the Olympics in Vancouver. And so, it is possible to generate that pride in our country, that pride in being a Canadian, all of the good things that we have in our country. We have so many good things here to celebrate, but we need a government and we need leadership that is proud of our country, that truly believes it's great to be a Canadian, that's willing to encourage Canadians to really lean into that and give them a reason to be proud of our country. And I think that's how we start this. And when we come together as Canadians, our differences fade away because we're all Canadians and we're all in it together. And I think we need leadership that brings that to the table, that encourages that and brings that out of Canadians. And that's what I see in Pierre Poilievre.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you brought this Olympics, and actually, as much as, when we were in India, sports would bring us together. Cricket World Cup, we're all together rooting for India. Of course, when you go to Australia, we see Australians, they say we are going to lift the World Cup this time. Yeah. And you're right, the Olympics really brought that feeling together. It was the Vancouver Olympics, yes. But last time when Olympics happened, I was seeing the Canadian athletes winning gold medals, winning so many other medals in different sports, swimming, athletics. But here we are. I call them, is there any reception or welcome party? Nothing. And when Indian athletes went back, the Prime Minister hosted a nice welcome party. I asked many times on my radio show, on my TV, do we even know who's the sports minister for Canada? We have started playing the Soccer World Cup. We're going to host the Soccer World Cup. Toronto and Vancouver have got their games. First time in the history this year, Canadian cricket team has qualified for T20 Cricket World Cup.
These are big deals.
These are massive, big deals in sports. Whereas the leadership is missing, please.
Yeah, well, it's the same issue. There isn't a concern and an intent to promote Canada. I mean, you can even look at our new passport. If you look at the pictures, there were all these iconic pictures of Canada, the things that people think of when they think of Canada, Banff, all these beautiful images we have of Canada, and it's been replaced with just generic images of nothing. And I think that's a very good way to think about how this government, how this Liberal government thinks about Canada. Canada is nothing important. And so why would we celebrate athletes coming back? Because it means nothing. And so this is something that Conservatives are excited to turn this around and excited to make people excited to be Canadian again and highlight the sports, highlight all the things that bring us together and the things that make this country such a great country.
Okay. My last question is going to be on the productivity. One of the things, whether when we read the history, whether it was U.S., the rise of U.S. After the Second World War, and then of course Japan, they were losing sign. But again, productivity. Now I know the economy, they've slipped down recently to the fourth largest economy. But anyways, Japan, Germany, productivity. We all see so many different things, and infrastructure among many other things. But How are we talking about per capita productivity in Canada? There have been a lot of questions I read, whether the economists from US or Europe or even other countries in Canada, they're raising these questions now.
Yeah, I mean, after 8 years of Trudeau, this is a sad story, and it's something that we absolutely have to turn around because the future of our country depends on it. Mainly some of the bills that the Liberals have brought in that make it very, very difficult to do new projects, new resource projects, development projects, has essentially corporations don't look at Canada anymore to do a big project. They look elsewhere in the world, which is a terrible shame because Canada is such a massive owner of resources. We have so many opportunities to develop great resource projects, whether it's in potash in Saskatchewan, gold, even all the new developments that are happening in resource extraction, and we can do it so environmentally friendly compared to other countries. Our oil is produced best in the world, no matter how you look at it, and yet we're still importing oil from other countries because the current government doesn't make it reasonable and feasible for a company to develop a new project. So what happens is business investment in our country is going down. And it is exactly business investment that causes things to improve. So what we need to do is attract more business investment by having a more stable and predictable regulatory environment in Canada. And that's what the Liberals have destroyed. Conservatives have a solid plan to eliminate the silly bills the Liberals have brought in so that we can have that stability, that predictability that allows businesses to invest money into Canada, which helps our productivity and ultimately improves the standard of living for every single Canadian.
Yeah, if I could squeeze in just one more question. Last time our Justice Minister Arif Rani, he said, the Conservatives, when we talk about crime, they have done a lot of things. There have been reforms in the bail and many other areas. But we still see getting a lot of calls on radio, TV. People are concerned about the rise in crime.
Yeah, absolutely. We have car theft is up 300% in Toronto, 100% in Ottawa. Extortion is up, and really there's a couple of reasons why the Liberals have made that easier. They have done this idea of getting out on bail instead of going to jail. You commit a crime, you just get arrested, you go in, stamp your finger, out you go. And so they have introduced bills to make it far too easy for criminals to get out on bail. And so there's no disincentive anymore for committing crimes. And so we need to get back to a point where there is a disincentive to committing crimes, where we need to have mandatory minimum sentences for serious crimes with weapons, crimes dealing with auto theft when it relates to gangs. These are things that our leader, Pierre Poilievre, is proposing to do. We want to give law enforcement the tools they need to actually enforce our laws and make Canada a safe place. People don't feel safe in Canada anymore, and that's absolutely unacceptable. We have to fix that, and we have to get our police forces work so hard. We have to give them the tools so that they can do the job that they need to do.
All right, Brad, always a pleasure talking to you.
Great.
Thank you so much for your time. Anything else you want to add before I let you go?
Well, I think the main thing that I want people to remember is Conservatives have a plan. We are going to axe the tax, the carbon tax. We are going to build more homes. We are going to fix the budget, and we are going to stop the crime. That's what we're going to do as a Conservative government.
All right, thanks, Brett. You take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed today's discussion. We will carry on discussing about all the issues that our community is facing right now. So stay tuned with Ymedia. Thank you.
The biggest South Asian media group, Ymedia.